Actually, that was said, I think, or I'm not sure if it was said by, but we're going to be talking about that. We have a documentarian filmmaker. That movie I kept talking about, Accidental Courtesy, that follows Daryl Davis around, the guy that shot that movie's here. That this isn't me introducing him. Yes, it is. Let me introduce him. Let's bring out our new friend, Matt Orenstein. Would you like a drink?
I BY'd my own B, but thank you so much.
Okay.
For the offer.
All right. So, just out of curiosity, how many people have seen this movie? Just because I hadn't mentioned it today. All right. Okay. Good.
Given the grosses, I find that hard to believe.
Let's start there. What is how is the documentary racket these days?
I literally don't know where to keep the cash.
This was your first movie, right? Like your first documentary. Was it your first movie as well?
I've done a couple long-form documentary shorts, one of which was a narrative hybrid. So it was actors, but everyone else was a real person. And that was about the last space shuttle launch. And that did okay for itself, so that kind of led to this, I guess.
Did you know that this was going to take about 3 years? And if so, I have follow-up questions. Did you? And if so, why was it worth it? Go.
Well, I actually did not. I did not.
Matt, while Dan does that bit, for our listeners, get the mic right in your lips because it's.
Like, you want me to put the mic by the ice?
No, get it right.
Oh, yeah, eat the mic.
Eat the mic.
Right there. I actually thought we could do it very quickly. I was supposed to direct like a high school movie, actually, like a good one, but a fairly normal movie. And I'd cleared all that time, the pre-production, the shoot time, and then it delayed. And so I thought, we'll just knock out the Daryl Davis thing, just like,
So you thought maybe 3 months, 6 months?
6 months a year. I thought it'd be cake.
Because he's. That seems reasonable. I mean, the movie opens with him telling a story that just sort of whiplashes you because everything that you think you understand about how bigotry and race is supposed to work in America is subverted by this very simple story in the beginning, which is your throat sounds like it might be a little tender, so I'll tell the story. But he tells us, like, there's the KKK's coming to town, and they don't have a bus, and he has a bus, and he lets them use his bus. And you're kind of like, wait, what's going on? I don't understand what's happening. And it sort of leaves you hanging because you can't understand it. This guy, Daryl Davis, like that's sort of how he started down this road of this very unique individual form of activism where he very simply befriends racists, not in an attempt to, he doesn't come at them and tell them how they're wrong. He doesn't even say, let's debate about it. He just makes friends with them. And then slowly over time, they tend to retire from racism.
I describe it like he fights a war of erosion, or like, it's like the 100 Years battle. Like, he knows eventually that it will work out, but it's not a hard sell by any means. The opening you're talking about, I love. I realized pretty quickly that we only had one chance to sort of use. The cold open could be very special because you don't necessarily know what his deal is, and you immediately have to recontextualize all this information right off the bat. Mm-hmm. And then as the film goes on, it sort of takes on a different meaning. Yeah, I mean, and then the meeting with the goddess, as Joseph Campbell would put it, like for me watching that documentary, is that then he goes and he's in Baltimore, correct? Baltimore.
And there's these very like smart, like dedicated career activists, Kwame Rose and
Tariq Touré, Kwame Rose, and J.C. Falk.
Is J.C. Falk the older guy?
J.C. is the older guy.
I had already described this scene to them, which is that they sit down across the table from this guy, and you've been watching the whole time. You've been watching these kind of Jim Norton-y looking like KKK guys. I'm not Jim Norton's not racist. I'm just saying, like they're just putting a picture in your head.
That's great casting.
Oh my God, that's that one guy at the diner, right? You'd cast Jim Norton as that guy.
Absolutely.
Where you're watching over and over again, you're watching him sit down with these guys, and you're kind of like, it's confounding because you don't understand. Like, well, wait, I don't understand how racism works. Then if there's exceptions to it, then why don't you stop being racist? And then they go, well, they eventually do. They just need black friends.
I mean, it's the reality, though. A lot of them have never had any black friends. And so in the absence of real information, you can tell them they have horns, and it flies for a little bit.
And it becomes more of an expression of how much they care about their neighborhood or their family or themselves or their whatever. And there's just this thing they've never met. And that's the question that Daryl keeps asking. That's his thesis question is, how can you hate me if you've never met me? And it carries him through that. But then it's like, oh, now these times are upon us. These conversations are so important. And he sits down with these guys, these younger millennial activists, and in very short time, they're having a harder time seeing eye to eye than these more performance kind of like, hey, well, baseball, apple pie, I'll tell you, if you like Elvis, then I like you. Say cheese. And I don't mean to demean it or trivialize it, but it's like now it's time to have a real conversation, and it breaks down pretty quickly. And and those guys don't. It doesn't get like shouty, but those guys get up and go, you know what? Can't do it anymore. After they kind of call him out on what are you doing and what good is it doing? Like what has it changed? You've been doing it so long, and isn't it almost the thing that would kill me was when one of the two of them said, it seems like it's a fetish.
Yeah. Which is something everyone had thought at some point a little bit, because a fetish doesn't necessarily mean what he does isn't valuable. It just means that he has grown to...
He's fixated on it.
He's fixated on this thing. And, just a tiny bit of background. Sorry, I'm a little... There we go. Daryl was raised in international schools. Daryl's the guy in the film. And his dad was a diplomat. So he grew up in this sort of utopian school environment where there really wasn't racism like we experience and take for granted here. So he comes back to the States, and it just does not compute. And he wants to know what the deal is. And that's sort of what opens the door on all of this. And it goes on to have, greater meaning for him.
And he's a musician, right?
He's a musician. He's played with Chuck Berry, rest in peace, and Little Richard, and all kinds of great musicians. He's really amazing at that. And that's often his way of communicating was initially through music. Like, he'd be playing somewhere and people would want to come talk to him. Mm-hmm. So it makes him a celebrity if you're some little honky-tonk and you've been on Letterman with Chuck Berry.
Right. And when you are that dedicated to music, then probably you that's another reason why you tend to not see the things that get us tied up. Not that I'm a person that gets tied up in it, but we should bring up our black friend Brandon Johnson.
Let's get a black guy here, please.
Brandon Johnson, he's our blackest friend, blackest friend in the world, Brandon Johnson.
Oh, I love that fucking theme song. Good God.
That's a good fucking suit, Brandon. You did it again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Davis.
How do you... Yeah, you guys both look sharp.
Jeff Davis, honestly, just always impeccable. Me, I'm like, I'm going to cut a couch up and take the fabric off, maybe rip out the interior of a 78 Oldsmobile Cutlass, and then wear that to the Harmontown show.
Well, you have a great tailor then.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't know.
Dan's worst nightmare is the show is you and me talking about suits.
I mean, in his defense, he said he knew what a Henley was, though. I'll give him points for, he's like,
my girlfriend, when I heard my girlfriend say it. Yeah.
It's dope. It's dope. It's a big deal.
Clothes. So one of the suits is better than the other suit, but you disagree on that? I mean, what?
No, we're just admiring each other.
Yeah.
It's two men admiring the sartorial splendor that is Brandon Johnson and Jeff Davis.
All right. Anyway, I just wanted to
God
get him
bless.
out because I didn't want him like waiting around while we talked about this stuff. But because Brandon's like he's people love him. He's the.
It's very nice to you, Dan Harmon. I got to say, I love doing the show. People have been so nice to me since I started doing it, so thank everybody so much for the nice words.
Yeah.
Because it's difficult, because this is a difficult soup to get into, It's not, I thought it was... It's gonna be like Oprah, like easy. We're gonna bring out some animals and see some animals, but no, every week it's some black shit.
No. Our show for you is the first 2 acts of Get Out.
Right.
I haven't seen it.
That's good. That's good.
Stop. I mean, now I already know too much, you know? All right, back to this scene in this cafe in Baltimore, wherever it was. So I read a short interview with you where you were talking about the very understandable dilemma of this guy's been doing this his whole life. What's the documentary going to be? You thought it was 6 months. Now it's, I don't know how long into that it is, but it's like you can't just make up a third act for a documentary. It's like a hard thing to like paint a picture and like have it also feel like a movie. And we know he's not going to like save a kitten from under a car or like you know punch his dad or something. But then in this moment, he's meeting these you know activists who, and it's like they're all good guys, they're all heroes, and they can't see eye to eye. And at one point, one of the young guys says before he gets up from the table, because he's talking about how you know, questioning what the efficacy of what Daryl's doing. Yeah. Which also the guy from the Southern Poverty Law Center does as well. He basically says, we appreciate what you're doing in single portion servings, but we deal in bulk when it comes to anti-Semitism and racism. We'd like to clear the fucking decks. We don't want to just spend 25 years making a few racist friends. But that's the theme that these guys come upon, and it's like it's hard to it's hard to watch because it like removes all of your sense of there's a solution here somewhere. It's just in a box I haven't opened yet, and I'm a fragile white privileged viewer of this documentary. I know the secrets to race and racism, and I have numerous black friends, and I'm gonna watch this and I'm gonna find out the truth. But then it breaks down. Those guys get up respectfully. Now we don't really want to talk to you anymore. And at one point Daryl says, do you guys not think that the system can change, that these racists can change? And one of them kind of reflexively says no. And that to me was like the meeting with the goddess where it was like, oh shit, we're at war with ourselves because we're understandably like arguing between left and right, black and white and all this stuff. But there's this fight that we keep forgetting we're having, which is the fight between people that want to fight and people that don't want fighting to keep happening. And I'm not saying that activists are pro-conflict, sure, but they are.
It's the language they speak in.
They're dealing with the issue in that language. They're like, arrest me because if I'm afraid of getting arrested, then that's a fucking problem, and that's what you wanted. So now I'm going to make you arresting me part of the painting that I'm putting in this museum. And then it's like, okay, that's brilliant and good and effective. But at what point do you go, oh, shit, I don't, and you just walk away from this whole thing feeling like your soul wants to puke.
I mean,
but in a good way. That's called a catharsis.
If I could put that on the box. I mean, honestly, that's a very astute read on it, and I'm fond of saying about that scene that everyone in it is right and everyone's also wrong. They are correct. The younger activists are correct that the stakes are different for them. They're watching their friends be killed in front of them, and Daryl's solution is not something that seems immediate enough to them. But they're also wrong that people can't change, which is hopefully kind of the big theme of the movie. I mean, to make it murkier and even less satisfying, for me, what I've really come to through this movie is racism. Racism's a social disease that is related to economics largely. I mean, it's like, it's horribly unfulfilling as that sounds. The factors that lead someone in an inner city to join a gang are the factors that lead someone in a rural area to join something like the Klan. The same lack of education, lack of options, the same broken homes. And so when we get into that scene, we're kind of butting up against that. Like, the real issue here has to do with education and opportunity, and a symptom is these KKK and skinhead guys.
Right. Because their philosophies don't hold up. If they sit down for a grilled cheese with a friendly black guy, they within 5 minutes are saying, well, I don't.
And if that's all it took, then like how solid was your belief system?
Yeah, and so then you go, okay, this is dumb, and then you go, okay, there's a lot of dumb people, and then I it's like a question that I want. I mean, and anytime you can go, look, I made a documentary. I'm not talking about this shit. But I was curious driving over here. I was thinking about my thoughts on the issue, and I was like, is there? I guess circling around the question, like one question to start with would be, among white people, is liberalism, it gets easier the richer you are, right? That's not to say that the richer you are as a white guy, the more prone you are to be liberal. The statistics don't bear that out. However, show me a white liberal and I'll show you a support system.
Right. I mean, I think like most things, it's probably easier to be wealthy and white and do them.
It's easier.
What?
But it's.
I'm sorry.
Hey, Brandon, you should totally check it out, man.
I was playing basketball and trying to get on America's Got Talent.
But it really I mean, that takes you down a scary rabbit hole, which is, okay, so maybe I'm just not technically racist because my parents had a little less meth. Like I was born, you know, it's just like when you start to get it, those are the thoughts that really haunt you when you go like, well, okay, so I had a neighbor with a swimming pool and I had a 3.0 GPA and I lived in a suburb and there were no bars on our windows. So, and I went to integrated schools. And so, but it was like I guess the thing I'm circling here is like, so we have the big problem that we have in our country is neither race, nor is it bigotry, nor is it's the fact that we refuse to address class, we refuse to address poverty, and that where there is poverty, there are things like that don't affect us as much, like people believing the earth is flat, people believing that there's no sun, that it gets eaten by a turtle at night. Like those things just don't affect how they hire and fire and who they shoot and like what words they say on Larry King. Like I don't know, I'm mixing a lot of things there. You're like, why would there be a poor white person on Larry King that believes turtles eat the sun?
Well, they're clearly there because they're a Trump science advisor.
Because it's hard to find. Yeah, you got to find that. You got
Snap.
equal time. Yeah, and so I don't know what. I don't have a question. I was just babbling about it.
No, but you're babbling in the right direction. It really
Thank
is.
you. Told you, fucking. I heard you fucking doubting me.
Because we refuse.
Honky pieces of shit.
You tell them. Because we refuse to talk about class in a realistic way, we leave the door open for people like Trump to talk about it in a way to their advantage.
Right.
You know, poor black people and poor white people have a lot more in common than rich white people and poor white people at the end of the day. But
like the color of their skin? I don't understand. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. This is the age-old thing. We all know it, too. Like, even the dumb people know it, but they don't feel it.
Well, you do this thing, collateral damage, where you're like, we're going to lose 100,000 people, but we're going to advance 20 million. So you'll do things like you'll create a nice, thin, poor white line next to a large black community, and then you'll keep super rich people further away. It's so fucking primitive. If you look in Los Angeles, all the rich people live up high. It's the most monkey shit that we do. And you want to say, like, when are we going to finally do this? But there's something about the human race that we're like, man, we got these places where we take people, they get sick, and we just put them in this place, man, it's called a hospital, where we devote 4 of those floors to titty augmentation. And then 1 floor to cancer research. And I think the same is with race, is that we're super trying to figure it out still. Racism is kind of complex, but it's really not that complex, but it works. It works without a head, so it's difficult to stop it. Correct?
I think that is absolutely true, but I will also say...
better, man. I didn't just rip off Jesse Jackson for nothing.
You are so aggressive, but also so articulate. I love it.
He's so articulate.
I do think on some level, it does seem like something that will not be with us forever. And I know that sounds very optimistic, but if you look at it by age distribution, well,
Michael, stop it.
Look, obviously the internet is in many ways a dark and terrifying thing, but it also, the amount of empathy it generates, that they say that overnight, with the invention of the Gutenberg printing press, the murder rate in the world went down.
Right.
Because you could suddenly understand what it was like to be someone else.
Yeah.
And the internet is that times a million, just not in the YouTube comments.
But is that like technology advances and that parabolic curve like information grows so fast? Like I forget what they call that thing where we're going to have the computing power of a human brain in our phone like 4 weeks from now, because that's the rate things are going at. But is racism or sexism actually moving at a similar rate? I don't think it is.
I feel like I'll handle this. I almost feel like
everybody take 5.
It almost seems like, I think, is that Turing's is that inaccurate to call it Turing's curve or whatever you're talking about? The Turing's thing is that one day the computers will be
Moore's
like
law, right? Someone in this room knows Moore's law. There we go.
Okay, got it. All right, so I didn't hear it, but let's. But it almost seems like that's going to outpace. Like it's like I have had conversations lately where it's almost like we're starting to admit to ourselves that we, short of ripping our flesh off of our faces, and throw gender in there as well, like we can't. We're just fucking idiots about it. Like, we receive signals that overpower us, and the progressive among us are simply compensating in things that we always have these bioengineered for fucking barbarism bodies, and that we're quickly approaching the point where there will be an app that just makes you not racist, because it won't be because we become evolved.
I thought that was Pornhub.
it kind of, I mean, yeah.
I can't hate those people. So fucking beautiful. I mean, it looks good in them swirls. That's two or more colors in a rolling ball of fuck.
I mean, but statistically, there's truth to that as well. Like, eventually, I mean, it really is. It's all blending, and the numbers are changing, and the demographics are changing, and like the day when a non-college educated white man could run it all is definitely, the sun is setting on that, and that's part of what you're seeing is the last stand.
It's these spasms, because it actually is. We talk often about, a guy in Kentucky doesn't have any Muslim friends or whatever. Well, yes and no. I think what's happening is that there's this Rubicon being crossed. Where but thanks to the internet, that person in Kentucky feels like it's at his doorstep now. Right. He, in a way that he never felt it before, and there was actually a kind of like strange like symbiosis between the heartland and the cities before that was always possible when they were separated by horse distance. Right. And it was like, oh, my cousin's coming to town. He's a little bit of a hillbilly.
I mean, there's been studies for I think 15 years now about the level of mistrust of people in the middle of the country, of the coast, and all the media related.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been there. We just kind of...
Yeah, David Wong wrote this really great essay kind of summing that up in terms of our popular culture. It just all goes back to this whole thing that's, Hunger Games and all that stuff. It's like we in America in particular, we love the mythology of people in the country are simple folk. Right. They like to chew on their long grass things, and they're awful clever. They're like leprechauns. They got salt of the earth wisdom, and they got tricks they can pull, and they're the heart of the whole country. And then meanwhile in the cities, I mean, we in the cities propagate this myth. We look at ourselves as not city folk. We look at ourselves as country folk that moved to the city. Right. And so we write movies and TV shows about how, well, if you live in the city, you're this out-of-touch, pasty-faced person with a mole sticker on your face and the heart-shaped hair, and you're like, oh, what this next contestant will fight the laser shark for food. I love it. And we understand that has been it's the outlaw hero versus the righteous hero. It's this idea of cities coming up and like, oh, the sheriff's important, but so is the Han Solo guy, mixing genres.
I'm still following you.
So I guess that's just me going, oh, I know what you're talking about. I can say it too, but longer.
I mean, I think that it's like, it's obviously a cynical writing device, but it's also hopeful that maybe like if we threw off the shackles of the city, we'd be better, more honest, more straightforward people.
Matt, could you make a documentary about Dan Harmon called Mixed Metaphors?
I have some availability.
But it does feel like, is there a chance that actually just because city living is getting more and more of a, like the money's thinning out. The millennial generation they're getting by on less.
But they're rich. They are richer. There is more money privately now because people got super rich in the past 10 years. So that's who's buying houses in San Francisco and Los Angeles and Chicago.
Millennials?
That's what. Yeah.
Those pieces of shit.
Yes, because
I never trusted them.
they're all around us.
Yeah. Play it cool, Jackson.
All I got to do is put out some records.
I think millennials have just been pretending to live with their parents and not have a future of their own. So I think it's like a long con.
They also love racist stuff. They love it. They pretend to get outraged by stuff, but they love it.
Tell me more, please.
Like all of our crowd, the millennials, they come to the show. Like, what are they doing? Like, you guys, you get so afraid of us saying the wrong thing, but you keep coming every week. We're going to offend you every time.
Well, I think I would. They're not here to defend themselves, but I would say that's because it's not like NASCAR where you're like, I hope I see a car flip over and have a disaster. I think it's more like if in NASCAR a car flipping over made the car stronger. Like if a burning Dan Harmon crawled out of every wreck and went like, now I'm made of asbestos and I'll handle those curves a little slower.
I would watch that.
Yeah, they do. I mean, I think I'm America's like Gen X, like unintentionally racist and sexist white knight uncle that like is like because I didn't get married when I was, or I did get married. That's right.
Goddamn! Wow! Goddamn!
Because I didn't get married and have kids on the schedule that would now have me have a 20-year-old kid, like I'm just like this weird drunk Gary Busey uncle at their wedding, going like, oh, what are you kids talking about? Race? Here's the thing. You got your black people and your white people. Is that still a thing? But think about it spiritually. Oh, Uncle Gary Busey. That was a fucking wicked Gary Busey impression. You don't know you have one until you try it. I'm Gary Busey. I lost it. A very familiar feeling starting to come over me.
I think even he has trouble these days keeping it in.
But anyways, yeah, I think the Twitter's become a sewer. It just upsets me. I can't get off of it. I have this like. But I also get these like doses of like pure like uplifting optimism, and I guess it's just I'm 44, so I'm always gonna funnel it through race and gender and all this stuff. But it's like I'll go like it's black young women are going to save us because they haven't like on Twitter they're like I'm dehumanizing by putting them in a group. It's like if you know a black woman and she's a piece of shit, that's good. I'm not dehumanizing anybody. I'm just saying like I see this face of the future and it's like, oh, this all makes sense because they've just been had so many times, but it's forced that demographic to keep this thing that we're all striving for, which is like big picture, like pragmatism. Because there ain't no fucking like jackpot coming if you play your cards right. Like it's more like, wait a minute, what? How does the house always win, and how do you count cards in 20? That's what I'm seeing a lot on Twitter and blogs and things. Is people that you would never the silhouette they cut, you'd think, well, this person wouldn't even show up to the conversation because there's so many buttons being pushed before they get in the room. Well, it's the opposite. No, my buttons are getting pushed. because my software and hardware are all out of date. And now there's this new generation of people who are just like born into this stuff and going like, man, there's a lot of fucking claptrap going on about my race and my gender, but I'm not going to let that distract me. I see you're trying to trigger me, but here's the thing. And I see a lot of that going on. What is my fucking point? Am I trying to get a medal for? I want a young black woman to come up to me after the show and give me a teddy bear, I guess. I don't know.
shout out.
And if that is you.
Let's not forget Maxine Waters has been super brave throughout
And
all
old black women.
And that's the thing is that for us,
Dan, why do they have to be young?
It started, it probably, that's years and years of activism and something that is trained, and you grow up knowing these things, and that's great because you are able to pass a little hope. I'm glad you're so inspired.
There's also part of a public school kid from Milwaukee, so I guess when Maxine Waters responded, or more importantly, didn't respond, didn't take the bait of all that, that shit.
Man he did, because she did. She was like, that man has a bunch of cases against him for women's. It was beautiful. So it's like, that's why you don't fuck with her in the first place. You got old filthy ass hands, Riley. That was the crazy. I was like, why would this dude pick on her when he knows that she is not going to fuck around on the rebuttal? She's a black woman.
Right.
She's going to tell you that your feet stink, the pizza's burnt, and I don't think that bathroom was clean enough.
I was excited when
and I loved you. I'm telling you these things because I love you, and I don't want your friends to come over, taste your nasty ass pizza, and take a shit in your shitty bathroom.
Yeah.
I loved you.
That was Miss Jackson, my fourth grade math teacher, calling me over to the desk after taking everybody's lunch money and then calling me back up. Daniel. And she handed me a brush and a nail file and said, go scrub your hands and wash your nail, or go wash your hands and scrub your nails. And I was like, I turned beet red and was like, what? And she's like, go wash your hands and scrub your nails. Anyways, I was like
good ass advice though.
But that was
Dan, I tweet you that every couple days.
The Maxine Waters response, I noticed, she didn't. It was like, how old is she? What is she? 70? She's Donald Trump's age, right?
12 terms or something like that.
You want to talk about a black woman's age?
When
as far as I'm concerned, she's 42.
Bill O'Reilly made that comment, and it was like, and then I was like, let's all have these logical debates about, you can talk about his hair and all this shit. Give me a break. You're supposed to understand this shit with your gut. That's why I'm the wisest. You're not supposed to process this shit with your fucking. If you're having a debate on Twitter about what? Oh, so you can make fun of his hair? It's like, think lower in your body about this and what you know that Bill O'Reilly meant when he responded to her saying the president's a criminal by going her hair looks like James Brown. Think if you don't know that that's racist, then it's like we don't need to have a debate.
That's right.
The customer's always right.
It's all dog whistle too. Someone like Bill O'Reilly, who's a professional piece of shit, has these viewers that know their way of life is waning.
They're
selling. Makes them feel better for 10 minutes.
It's like what Obama, the 8 years they were addicted. Bill O'Reilly could just get on and dog whistle very lightly about race. So the president in jive was the thing. Exactly. It's like that wasn't a very subtle dog whistle. I'm not good at it because I don't see the world through that lens.
I saw
Commander in jive was at the summit today. But it was for 8 years, the mythology that was selling was, you're poor, you're at home, you're watching TV, your problems aren't getting solved, there's a black president. It was an easy it was like having a wicked stepmother. And then, okay, now the big story is, let's have an election. And that was fun too. And then it was the hope and change night. Then the next day it felt like, we all just started making paper airplanes and hanging out. And then there was a lot of tea party, this and that. But this is different because it's they won, and then they're and I'm still mad, of course. About what? Mad about you not accepting my anger. I don't accept your anger because you won. Well, yeah, snowflake. Yeah. They're amped up. Oh, yeah. So when he knew, he's like, I'm going to say something a little itty bitty racisty. And it's going to, then we're going to have a conversation about hair.
I mean, we've all seen, how many videos have we seen of someone in a store being horrible, and the punchline for them is, this is why I voted for Trump. Like, right. I can't stop watching these things. Honestly, stop me, please.
Matt, did those people that he helped to change, is there a number on that?
That number goes up and down. It's sort of like a fishing story. It's hard to clock, 2,040, some article had it at 200, which I think is way high.
Did they go on to do his work? Like, did they recruit?
Some of them do. The guy who's at the end of the movie, Scott Shepard, who was a Grand Dragon and now is sort of an activist, he texts me that he's working on this guy or this other guy. I mean, it's definitely propagating itself on some level.
Really deep. Yeah, like how many of them make friends with him? And I'm asking for more data that you're going to say is like up and down, but like that's another question is like, do they make friends with him and then 30 years later go, my back hurts, I can't be racist anymore, here, take my Grand Wizard cloak? Like, does that count?
I mean, I think it all counts, but like some of it is that. I think that I would analogize it to like being in a crime family. Like, all of your kids' friends' parents are also part of it. If you're a Grand Dragon, you get paid dues. I mean, it's part of your financial structure. It really has to uproot your life to change it.
Yeah.
But then
so you can get a job as a Grand Dragon.
You can supplement your income for sure. That's
Brandon. Well, not everybody can get a job as a dragon.
But there's a loophole.
I'm from Hollywood.
Well, the one in the movie in the purple robe has been murdered since the film. So there is at least one vacancy.
But do you think? Do you think that was politically motivated? Was he murdered for?
It was apparently his wife who he was leaving and her biological son.
Missouri.
And he
died on the same day as Prince, which is fucked up.
Yeah, like don't even.
No, not at
day.
all.
Leave it alone. Yeah, they poisoned him so he'd be docile and then shot him for good measure, is my understanding of it.
Whoa, okay. He was absolutely...
very thorough.
Oh, God. Yeah, and I will say one thing to myself in response to that comment about like, oh, do they just get old and they're too old to be racist? But from my experience, not to say that my family has any old racists in it, but like from my experience, if you don't... Getting older makes you more spiritual. It doesn't tend to make you more progressive. Like it's not just something to do because you're old. Like I find myself a little more God-fearing every pound I gain, and every time I get in the elliptical, I just like genuflect a little bit. But there's that kind of thing. No atheist in a foxhole, and what is life but God is at war with us. He's killing us, and we tend to, anyways. But you kind of double down. That's my experience. Is like you go to your grave without intervention, going like, dying, and by the way, I'm so glad there's no black people in my room that I'm dying in, because they'd probably steal my death.
Even the death. Yeah, I have a new project I'm working on that sort of links into this, and a factor that all these countries where they have populist regimes that come to power, an aging population is like the number one factor. People are more afraid. They want to hold on to what they have. They're more willing to listen to convenient lies.
Everything young is like, I mean, these guys, give me a break. Like the things that they say and tweet, like I'm starting to get like I'm like I shake my cane at them all the time. Everything young to the older you get, it's like a threat. Steve Martin made that hilarious joke when he hosted the Oscars. Like, I love to introduce the young filmmakers, or I don't know. God damn it, I can't tell a fucking joke to save my life. I always love to meet the young filmmakers in Hollywood because they remind me of my death. Something like that. But that's it in a nutshell. Is like, hey, your old young people seem a little bit like poison ivy to you.
Sure.
Like they just feel icky. Like they feel like they're pushing you off the earth.
I tried to do the same shit when I was your age. Don't bring it. We deserve it. We ain't doing shit with the earth anyway. Come on, young people. Y'all can have this motherfucker, man. It's all polluted and shit. You can't smoke inside anymore. You can fucking have it.
Brandon and I were having a conversation about this at the airport lounge when we went to Chicago, and we were talking about, you kind of boiled it down to, well, we have a biological panic inside of us because we're descended, and some of us are descended from areas where if you had an orange in your hand, it made the difference between whether your kids could live or die. And we're kind of biologically reacting to that. I don't know.
I could be. This is paranoid, but there's this crazy thing where you're like, if you look at the world, you notice that the population of white people is like way up high in the hills. It's like Canada, United States, and then over Africa and India and shit, there's like white people. But all the good shit is close to the equator. It's where all the oranges and the fruit and like the life and the dance and the fucking carnival, butt naked, beautiful black women are dancing in the streets, and it's crazy. So if you lived up there in those places that are closer to the cold, and you heard that there was a world that was warm and there was a lot of fruit and there was not as much disease potentially, you would no. You can keep your orange, thank you.
God damn it, Michael! I swear to God.
Yeah. This motherfucker heckled me with fruit.
Yes.
But I think that
if you say a noun, he produces it. He's like
try something
pussy.
else.
Two pussy? I think the world would look different to you because you're from a place where maybe it's barren. So you see these people down there and you're like, they're not actively managing their resources. We're starving. How can we get their shit? And if you look at it on a map, it looks like the people who live up here who don't have food and warmth are coming down to get the shit in South America and Africa. So what our thing is to sort of say, welcome. There's enough food for all of us. Come on down here, but we've been waiting for you. We're not worried about dying out. But if you live up in these places, you come from these places, you're like, fuck, my numbers are decreasing. Right. I can't have the United States become Mexican and black and Asian.
I followed a mammoth down here.
That's right. I busted my ass, and I don't have a lot of fucking resources when it comes to things that keep me healthy. So I can negotiate with these people and try and get the shit that they have, hot peppers and red fruits and orange fruits and yellow fruits, or I can just swoop down and take that shit. If my numbers were failing, if black people were becoming extinct, I might try to steal all your fucking oil. I might try to take all your land. I don't know.
If you believe that you're part of a genocide.
If you feel like your people are dying out, which is kind of how the thickest of the racists feel. They feel like abortion is bad because you're fucking up our numbers, not because we don't believe in a woman's right to choose or that bullshit. It has nothing to even do with that. They're like, you are fucking with our sheer numbers. It's 1 billion Chinese. We got to catch up. Y'all Italian families, y'all Irish families ain't doing your jobs. But if you think like that, then yeah, it does make sense that this tribe would be warrior-like. But our job is to beat you to the punch and sort of be like, hey man, there's enough shit for everybody. Stick around. I'm invested in your survival just like I want you to be invested in mine.
I like that model the best because it acknowledges this thing that like nags at me when I look at the world and I just feel like empirically you could just observe the fact that if there's one accurate thing you could say about genetics, it's that white people are so good at racism. Like they're just gifted at it. And I just like, I don't want to believe that that's genetic, but at the same time, if you go purely egalitarian and go like, well, we're all exactly the same, then you are this, then you have to be subjected to this world that keeps telling you you're wrong about your decidedly rational belief that everything's flat and even. And the nice different split is like, well, maybe there's a couple millennia of like what my therapist would call kind of like tribal memory and shit. Like there's it's not really genetic as much as it is like kind of just, I don't know, there's like some other field of storage and that will burn out.
There's that thing you often hear too, that, you know, when you're used to things being completely disproportionate, equality feels like you're losing. And I think there's a fair.
We've all had those moments like where if you ever like take like, I don't know, you're at a party and somebody says, hey, we should all get high and just hang out and like and then like I don't know, something weird happens. Like somebody says, what if we all got pizza and like took off all our clothes and put it in a bucket? And you're like 23 and you're like, oh, I've never done this drug before and pizza sounds good and I just moved here from Portland and I don't even like these clothes and everyone's taking them off. And then we all have these like moments, like these random social experiments where somehow there's like sometimes you like fight this roller coaster ride where you take off all your clothes, you put it in the bucket with everyone else's clothes. The pizza comes. Someone else is in the bathroom and you run your credit card for the pizza, but you're all high and it's all like, and then there's just this moment where you have these like, as much as you were into the whole clothes in the bucket and everything, it's equal. You have this paranoid flash of, oh my God, I'm being fucked over. Like, everyone here hates me. I'm a dork. They're laughing at me. That's why they all have beautiful bodies. That's why they want their clothes in the bucket. So like they wanted to look at, I look like Paul Giamatti, and now I'm buying all their food, and they're fucking each other in the bathroom, and they probably have more drugs that they're not sharing with me, and you just start to lose your mind. That's not a story that actually happened to me. There's no such thing as a...
No. That's so specific. It has to be autobiographical.
There's a lot of detail in there.
Dan, where was the clothes bucket party?
Well, you know what? Actually,
how big is the bucket? All the clothes could fit in one bucket?
I stitched some elements together there. There was a girl I went out with once that took me to a party.
We were there because we were at the party.
Yeah.
The underwear party? No.
Yeah.
No.
We would never put our clothes in a bucket, Brandon, would we?
I briefly went out with a girl once who was like into yoga, and she was very attractive, and I was lonely, and but she was also really nice and like open and like emotionally like mature, and we'd go to dinner and I'd go like, well, I feel like sometimes I grapple with I feel like if you have good luck on Monday, then you're gonna get cancer on Tuesday, and she'd go like, have you ever experimented with maybe just having gratitude for what you have? And it's gratitude, huh? I like it. I like it. Gratitude. And we'd go to the beach, and she'd go like, I like that you don't want to go in the ocean and do yoga. I'm going to do some yoga. Is that okay? Yeah, all right. Everybody does whatever they want. That's what's great. And she'd do like yoga, and like, everything's going great. And then I just, it was only a couple dates, and we went to a party together, and then it was like all her friends that grew up in her neighborhood were at the party, and they all had gone to the same high school or whatever their version of high school was, like some academy or something. And it was like, all of a sudden, and I was like, oh, they're all rich, and then they were like, and then somebody brought over a box of underwear, and they all were like dancing, and I was like, yeah, dancing, I do it at weddings, but I like getting high. I'll sit here and get high. And then I was the only one sitting and getting high, and then everyone was dancing, and then somebody brought over a box of underwear, and they're all like, let's all put on the underwear. Not over our clothes. That's not how you wear it. They all took off their clothes. So they all looked like Ken and Barbie dolls, and they were all rich, and they're all sexy, and they all did yoga, and I was a fat guy sitting on the balcony with a joint in my mouth, and I was just like, fuck all these people, fuck them. They fucking lied to me. They tricked me. It's just like fucking grade school. It's just like everything. They would laugh at the fat guy. What if I'm so fat I can't dance? What are you doing? This isn't a custom. Get everyone put on underwear. Who brought a box of underwear?
I was wondering about that.
You should have got naked and fucked them up. You should have put that belly on them.
My point is that it's at those junctures when you start to risk melding with people that you're at the height, and you should be. It's that weird thing of like a Ouija board or like some game you'd play at a party where you're like, okay, so we're gonna reach out. We're both gonna do this thing, or like the stiff as a board thing. I'm gonna fall back and everyone catch me. It's like just that thought that gets in your head of like, boy, this could all be leading up to them just letting me hit the floor. And wouldn't that be a gas for them? And you hear stories where that's happened to some people in this room. You were at a sleepover and you played the game where you trust fall, and it was like either a mistake or it was actual fucking targeting. You hit the fucking floor, and you probably don't even know how traumatic it was. You probably think that you probably tell that story to your friends and go, and that's when I was like, I knew that was going to happen, and I'm more into Linux than I thought I was. And these people just are going to keep on debating between Mac and PC, and I'm like off the grid. But what really it's like, but you're always going to be dealing with it. I can't believe they fucking did that to me. It really hurt me inside and out. Anyways, but it's like yeah, racism.
I mean, just to bring it back around, isolated people are who falls for this stuff in general. Like, that's the common theme. These are people that are isolated geographically and personally, and they find belonging through these ideas.
Prisoner's dilemma.
Yeah.
That's what cops do. They separate you. They come into your room and they say, your buddy says you're a fuck up. You robbed the bank. The isolation makes you manipulatable.
That's exactly right.
And so now we have this internet, and it's like, now we're at this age that none of us could predict, where it's like, how do we have an internet and the historical headline of this era of political history is fake news? The idea that, and it's not just the idea that Breitbart is fake news or that Breitbart calls MSNBC fake news. It's the idea that we can believe that we've never been more polarized in terms of the information that we're receiving. How is that? No one would have predicted that the internet would have caused that, but it makes sense because it's a trust fall exercise, and we're in a spasm of, are you going to fucking drop me?